Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I'd like to join the Right Honorable Prime Minister and honorable colleagues this morning in paying tribute to now the late Emmanuel Tumusiime Mutebile, who was governor of the Bank of Uganda. On behalf of the team I lead, Right Honorable Speaker, on your left, I'd like to extend our sincere sympathies to the bereaved family, staff and management of Bank of Uganda, the people of Kabale and the country at large for the loss of one of the economic pillars of our time. The passing of Dr. Tumusiime Mutebile, Right Honorable Speaker, on the morning of 23rd January marked the end of an era of someone in that generation that participated in a nation and institutional building processes from a time when over 80% of Ugandans today were not yet born, Right Honorable Speaker. That distinction falls on a select few who get that one rare once opportunity to help set up institutions during and after the birth of a nation. Professor Mutebile was a very fortunate man. He was the right man with the right credentials who rose on account of his competence and helped cushion our economy from a state of near collapse in the early 1980s to a one where our people can only try to survive on the basics of life, Right Honorable Speaker. But good fortune alone does not fully explain everything, Right Honorable Speaker. Professor Mutebile was one of a kind. He was a leader, a mentor, and a very straightforward man from Kabale, who went on to make history as the founding father of neoliberal economic practices in Uganda's contemporary history. I asked him to heard, Right Honorable Speaker, that he was an apologetic high priest of structured adjustment programs. That is what part of the go down history as his hallmark. Right Honorable Speaker, Professor Mutebile believed and preached at every opportunity the ability of free enterprise to creating jobs, enhancing incomes and wealth for nations. He believed that macroeconomic stability or low inflation, high GDP growth, and better terms of trade with trading partners abroad would drive our society to prosperity. After more than 40 years of active service, guiding economic policy and management in Uganda, the late professor bows out at a time when Ugandans are still waiting to see the economic miracle often propped up by the NRM leadership, including at yesterday's gathering at Kolo Grounds, Right Honorable Speaker. He leaves Uganda in the uncomfortable company of so many countries that have talked about middle income status for so many years, but failed to attain it. Our other neighbors, Right Honorable Speaker, without mentioning names, grew their economies faster and sustainably to attain middle income status years ago. This decorrected economy, Right Honorable Speaker, has passed on and left behind leaders who are setting the Polish development model as the miracle economic transformational tool that will uplift our poor citizens from poverty to prosperity. He has left us in a country where the promised economic miracle to transform Uganda will be powered by unreliable power supply, unaffordable electricity, as well as unaffordable credit from banks. and other financial institutions, Right Honourable Speaker. He leaves Uganda as the fixed worst performer in terms of revenue collection when measured by revenue as a percentage of GDP. This is well documented, Right Honourable Speaker. This gallant son of Uganda, an authority in economic management, is leaving Uganda choking on the public debt, with interest payment on the public debt for the financial year 2023 programmed at about 5.88 trillion, of which 4.059 trillion is interest payment, Right Honourable Speaker. The late Professor, Right Honourable Speaker, was an honest man who didn't fear talking straight, what sometimes made powers that be so uncomfortable. And allow me to single out 3 incidents, Right Honourable Speaker. I recall when in 2011, the Governor, Bank of Uganda, disagreed with the President over the decision to spend $740 million on 6 fighter jets. At the time, Right Honourable Speaker, this payment led to a rundown of the stock of our foreign reserves from 6 to 4 months of import cover. The Minister of Defense, under the President's directive, and the watchful eye of the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, in a single transaction withdrew $400 million. That was the first payment, overnight from Bank of Uganda, to pay for the fighter jets without parliamentary approval. Since that time, Right Honourable Speaker, the competitiveness of our shilling has never regained, as the import cover has never risen to 5 months. The Governor informed this Parliament how he reluctantly accepted to release hundreds of millions of dollars after assurances and an informal agreement with the Finance Minister and the President that in about 2 years, proceeds from oil revenue would be used to repay the Bank of Uganda loan. Right Honourable Speaker, that to new members of Parliament explains the history of what we now consider the recapitalization of Bank of Uganda that this Parliament has been making since financial year 2017-18. The second incident, Right Honourable Speaker, Professor Mutebile, without fear, attributed the inflation and exchange rate depreciation 2011 to the election cash bonanza, in which the NRM and its leadership literally broke into the central bank in order to buy votes. After Kasita, the traders and other stakeholders went on strike, that the traders were protesting against escalating dollar price. The Governor did admit that this money was used for electioneering and plunged the economy into chaos. He then promised that next time government attempts to raid the central bank during the election campaign will not be allowed. We'll leave to explain whether that what didn't happen. The third and last incident, Right Honourable Speaker, in which is when the Governor stood his ground and resisted a plan by the executive to award an exclusive contract to print Uganda currency to Veridos Identity Solutions, a company without any history of currency printing. The Governor resisted the President and the minister responsible for finance, as well as the Attorney General, on a deal that would like to have created risk of public lack of faith in our currency as a store of value. We now pay tribute to a man who stood his ground and served according to what he judged right, not what was being imposed on him. Unfortunately, Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, he has left us when more than half of Ugandan households, about 57%, are still in a non-monetary economy. Right Honourable Speaker, before I take leave of this eulogy, may I take this opportunity to address this august House on 2 important policy issues that we must not run away from as Parliament. One, our senior citizens who have served this country with distinction and honor deserve to retire honorably and enjoy many more years of their lives in retirement. this House owes our citizens a law that bars men and women who have reached retirement age from continued stress of public service, Right Honourable Speaker. And I believe members will agree with me that we need to reconsider particular provisions that will plunge people that need to retire into continued stress. Probably the professor would have lived more days if he had been allowed to retire because he had played his part with honor. 2, the practice of seeking specialized treatment in neighboring countries is very unfair to millions of our citizens who have entrusted us, Right Honourable Speaker, with the privilege of sitting here to fix the broken health sector. Out-of-pocket financing is a big burden to most of our households who seek for specialty treatment. Health insurance, which our neighboring countries adopted years ago, is the only alternative that can support our underfunded health care system. Right Honourable Speaker, my team intends to take leadership on the health care insurance bill, which government has failed to reintroduce to this House, Right Honourable Speaker. Probably after we have made rest this grandson of Uganda, we should return and demand for an explanation as to what became of the Rubowa Specialized Hospital, so that citizens should stop spending money abroad when we have spent taxpayers' money on non-existing healthcare projects like the Rubowa project, which is now Bosch project, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, may the soul of that governor rest in eternal peace. I beg to submit.